Josh Neighbors, the host of College Countdown, joins us now. Josh, this has been the most interesting week between week between games, championship games, then on our way to, ultimately what is Army, Navy, and then the playoff in a couple weeks. But there is some intrigue going on in the world of college football right now. We'll talk about the portal at the end because there's some neat things going on there. But Bill Belichick, Scott Frost, Rich Rodriguez, as out of nowhere a coach hiring cycle as I could have possibly told you, because I'm not a let's run it back guy or let's do that. Like, I'm saying, if I'm North Carolina, I'm hiring Jamie Chadwell. If I'm West Virginia, I'm hiring John Sumrall. If I'm UCF, I'm hiring like Jason Candle or someone like that can come in and do well there. Or, someone who recruits the crap out of Florida that I'm not, that's who I'm bringing in, a big time guy. And then West Virginia and UCF run it back to the good old days. And then North Carolina, look, it's a home run or a loud out with Bill Belichick. Like, there's not going to be any, like, in between is where they live anyway. So this is either going to revolutionize college athletics or it's going to be one of those things like, you remember when Bill Belichick was the coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels? Right. What are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, so the Belichick one's really interesting because I think it's like, besides the fact it's him, it's just like every other hire. Like, we don't know if the NFL to college thing's going to work. If they put more money into it, they're already, I think I did the math yesterday. Mac consistently plus bowl games won like 7.3 games. So he's over 7 wins a season. So, like, the question was, are they going to be appreciably better? Well, if their roster, they put a lot more money into the roster, they should be. But like Belichick and company are probably going to take more of an approach where they evaluate players who are already in college, right? Because that's what the NFL guys do. They evaluate college players. So that's something that's more familiar with them. How much money they get, I don't know. But like, and he should be good at evaluating players. But also, this was a coach that recently had Matt Patricia calling offensive plays. So that was not the smartest thing in the world. So it's a mixed bag, just like a lot of other coaches it can be. And I'm skeptical about it. I mean, if their roster is better, then they should win some more games. But I just, like, what is the point of this? Because, like, were people not investing under Mac Brown? Are you just trying to get investment? Is there something schematically that Bill Belichick, I think Josh Payton made a good point. He's like, is there something Bill Belichick's discovered schematically that we don't know about? Or, like, is this purely about big name recognition equals more money, plus in a portal era, this is a guy who's got a staff full of people that know how to identify talent? But his last 5 years of drafting were not good.
No.
So, like, from a talent identification standpoint, we always do, it's like, they drafted the safety from Duquesne in the first round. And, like, guy ends up as an all-pro, but that's not been the case for them recently. For Bill Belichick. So I don't like going from a 73-year-old to a 73-year-old. I'm not saying if you go 73, you got to flip and go 35, but grouchy guy who wanted to coach in the NFL, you're getting him because he's just kind of looking for a spot to land and didn't want to wait for the cycle to go and him miss out. So Carolina kind of ended up lucky with it, but I'm skeptical of it, but it could work. It's got questions just like every other job.
Hey, well, again, we'll see. I'm not one of these people who's going to come out and say that this is not going to work. There's no, like, if anybody can figure it out, it's probably Bill Belichick, but he's going to have to change himself a little bit. Like, he's
his decision-making was bad at the end of his Patriots run. I mean, the drafting was bad and the play calling was bad. So, that stuff exists out there.
Yeah. And if he brings a bunch of those Patriots retreads with him to call plays there on either side of the ball, then I think that tells you, like, the big thing I think for Belichick and his success is how do you blend the old with the new? So how do you go and hire some college coaches who are damn good college coaches and not just be, this is an NFL developmental program, so I'm going to bring in a bunch of NFL coaches. All right, well, like, you know, sometimes guys can't do both. Now, there's tons of guys who can, but, you know, are those the guys who are in your, like, little circle?
I mean, and he's got a lot of failed coaches in his, you know, Patricia, Josh McDaniel, like those
Romeo
guys,
Crennel,
and then, I mean, you know, if you want to add like
Charlie Weiss.
Jared Mayo's not looking too great right now with the Pats as it is. I know they're going to be bad anyway, but yeah, like these weren't a lot of high caliber, great names, you know?
Okay. All right. In the Big 12, run it back was the theme with West Virginia and UCF, the two open jobs. Which coach makes a quicker impact and which coach makes a longer impact?
Rich Rodriguez is a better immediate impact, I think. The guy can flat out coach. Like, he's been a good coach everywhere he's been, basically, besides Michigan. If you want to say like 1.5, you know, Arizona kind of went south, obviously, for other reasons. But like, yeah, man, Rich Rodriguez can flat out coach. And we saw it at Jacksonville State. We saw it at West Virginia the first time. Typically, if he gets guys to like this part of the country, it's where he kind of kills it. And, you know, I know offense, it can be challenging because, you know, it comes and goes and you know, things get revolutionized when they keep changing. And this is a guy that revolutionized modern offense. He really did. He was a huge part of that Chip Kelly spread generation. And his was, you know, that spread option rushing attack, right? And that basically says, you know, I'm going to empower my athletes to make decisions and be themselves. And, you know, he's tough, hard-nosed, you know, and held people accountable, but he's still, I think in terms of like style of play, like empowered his players. And I like guys like that. And so, I mean, this does not feel like a retread to me because we've seen guys do what Rich Rod's done. I mean, he just took that program from FCS to FBS and they've been playing at a really high level. And guys like that get the call up to other jobs all the time. So it's a retread because Rich Rod's going back to a school he's been to, but in the sense of like a natural coaching progression, it's pretty natural that he's back. And look, man, like it's not in the Hugh Freeze way. You know, Hugh Freeze got two, let's see, it was Liberty. And then was he somewhere else after Ole Miss? Was it just Liberty? I'm trying to think. Was it just Liberty?
It was just Liberty.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty cushy. Like that's an easy job. Like they've got more money than everybody else in their conference and they've got a ton of really good resources. And so coaches do really, really an easy schedule and coaches do very, very well there. I'm not saying, you know, he didn't do a good job at all, but like Jacksonville State you did not know about Jacksonville State. And now you do because of him and the way that they've played. So I think because he's kind of on this natural coaching progression, I like that hire a lot more. Scott Frost kind of going to have to figure it out a little bit again, I think, because UCF's in an odd spot where they feel like they should be better than they are, but they're not that good.
Scott Frost, like, I think one of the things, you know, they are really fired up. I mean, they've got their donations have shot up this week.
That's why the
ticket request has done that. Like, he's made them excited, and I think he knows this. I don't know if the fans completely grasp this. This job has become different in the short 5 years since he's been gone. Like, It's become different. Rich Rodriguez, same thing, but when he left, the Big East was still a big-time conference. Like, you know, like it was still relevant. So I guess it's a little bit different. I was not a fan of just either idea of bringing back somebody who's already been there. Like, I just wasn't my thing.
Why, yeah.
But you know, I'm also like I'm what Barney from How I Met Your Mother, new is always better. Like that's kind of my thing when it comes to coaches. Like, just try something new. Like you've done this before. Okay, you know, Scott Frost had the best season in school history. You want to recreate that, and let's see if that happens. I just wonder, you know, how different is the job and how equipped that both these guys are going to be to deal with the different parts of this job now that they've not been in these kind of things for a little bit now.
But so I would ask you about the Rich Rodriguez part of it because Scott Frost's been out, and that when coaches are out, it worries me because football changes fast.
Yeah.
Rich Rod has not been out. And what
Yeah.
he's been doing in terms of scheme has worked. Now, has it worked at the super highest level? Like it worked before at a high level. Yes, but I think Rich Rod has this really long track record of being a really good coach.
Mm-hmm.
And he's had it at some different places, right? West Virginia. I don't know where Glenville State is. Got no idea, but he was good there, obviously. West Virginia to Arizona. And look, Arizona, I think he won 3 games second to last year, then 7 the year afterwards. They had a 10-win season there when he was there. And he had success. He had some serious success there. And then Jacksonville State, he had some serious success there. So if you're looking at Arizona, Mississippi, West Virginia, and Michigan's the one place where he didn't. But like, let's be honest, we just saw Wisconsin try to go air raid and it failed miserably. Mm-hmm. And so like there is a certain amount of like at this point, unless you're Ohio State or you're like one of the West Coast schools, like Illinois should not be running the spread. Michigan, you should not be running the spread. You just won a championship for the first time, and I forgot how long it was, whatever. But like you did it because you were the better team between the tackles on both sides of the ball. And so like identity wise, like that wasn't going to work there. But West Virginia, they were at their best when they got athletic kids from Florida to come and play for them. And, I think the entire East Coast come and play for them, and he put them into positions to succeed. And whether it was Steve Slayton, Pat White, Noel Devine, all those guys, that stuff still worked though for him. And so that's why I like what he does, because what he's done has continued to work. It's not like he needs to innovate to have success. I mean, he's innovated his own offense some, but like, it's not like he needs a cultural shift of his own to get there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. All right, Josh, did they get the CFP right in your opinion? Yeah. Under the current, like before we delve into the minutia of the rules that make less sense, did they get the 12 teams right?
So I asked this question last week on my show. I'm actually going to ask you, Paul, because I want to know your answer to this. If the mandate of the college football playoff, if the CFP head, God, whatever, whoever it is now, said to the committee, all right, your
Richard
job,
Clark.
Yeah, pick me the best 12 teams. Not this format is how we're doing it, whatever at large is. They said just give me 12. Do you think the rankings would look like they do now?
I think they might be slightly different, but here's the thing. Do I if you came down to it, and it really comes down to Alabama and SMU in this argument, right? And
I would say it comes down to
Alabama and Clemson, maybe.
To me, the big one was Miami against Alabama. Actually,
Miami against Alabama. Yeah. I think that we are letting the past history of the SEC cloud our judgment. I think this year, if you watch the SEC, there were not any great teams in it. There were not teams dominating each other, and that has happened in the past. Georgia, a couple years ago, 2022, Georgia ran through everything. They had one bad game against Missouri where, they essentially didn't wake up until the last 7 minutes of the game. And it wasn't a bad defensive game. It was an elite defensive game, like all of them were. It was just, Stetson Bennett might have had a little more fun the night before. I don't know. Maybe they varsity bluesed it up. I'm not sure what was going on, but they wound up winning the game because they needed to score like 10 points to do it, and they were like, all right, let me vomit for a second, and then I'll feel better. We'll puke and rally and go. That did not happen anywhere across the SEC this year.
No.
So the SEC is more akin to the Big 12. Now, do they have better offensive and defensive linemen currently? Yes. But their depth has been a chunk's been taken out of it. A huge chunk's been taken out of it.
And that's good news in my opinion. I think it's good news. Yes.
It's great
because
news.
I think the talent is much more spread out. I really do.
And the thing is, the talent, it is infinitely more spread out because you've got guys from SEC schools that were 4-star recruits that, sat for 2 years that are like, well, I just want to go somewhere where I can play. And they're skipping over the Big 12 and the ACC and the Big 10, and they're going to play at San Diego State because maybe they found out they're not P4 linemen. Or that they know that oh, well, I'm going to transfer there. There's another left guard that's the same year as me. We're both going to do it. Well, I don't want that. I just want to go to San Diego State because I know I'm going to play. And so everything is different. And look, San Diego State will give me $85,000 and Maryland's going to give me 50. So I'm just going to go to San Diego State, live in a cooler place and start, so it's like those things are all different. And I think people will see it because it is free agency. I mean, how many times have you on NFL free agency day when all these deals are made, looked at your phone and go, why the F would you go play for the Jaguars? And
then you see $60 million guaranteed, and you're like, oh, I don't understand why you're going to go play for the Jaguars.
Yeah, I'll live in crap-ass Jacksonville. I don't care. Duval. I'll do that. Right. That is happening. That's going to happen here, too.
That's exciting, though.
Exactly. So across the board, I just don't think that the gap is there.
But the problem is these conversations become so much more esoteric now, right? Because so if there's nobody clearly better than the other, right? So the Miami argument, I know Miami's defense sucks. I get that, but their offense has been a complete wagon this year. They've lost 2 games. I know that their strength schedule wasn't amazing, whatever. But they lost 2 games, 2 good teams by a total of 9 points. This month, I watched Alabama get just absolutely steamrolled by Oklahoma, who we know is bad. So maybe Alabama's top end is better than Miami's, but their low end is a lot worse than Miami's. And here's the thing. Good luck stopping Miami. Now, you get to score on them, but I know Miami's going to put a compelling game on the field, and they've got a star in Cam Ward. So if we're going to go the esoteric direction, and we're going to do things like take Florida State out of the playoff last year because the quarterback was hurt, I can be like, hey, they play close games, and they got a ton of offense, and I like their quarterback. Stick them in there. You know what I mean? Because if a talent's more spread out, and we're now fighting not between 4 and 5, but we're fighting between 11 and 12 or 12 and 13, it becomes a bit more of just a choose your own adventure, I think, as opposed to an actual criteria type deal.
Yeah, they've been foisted on their own petard a little bit, right? Because they set up this thing where they thought they had it under control, but you also added new teams, right? You added new teams that made it more difficult. The thing is that anytime you add more, it's going to be harder for everybody. It's going to be harder for everybody. The Big 12 knew this. The Big 12 knew because they'd been living it. It. The ACC probably knew it a little bit, and that's why they were maybe reticent to do it because I think the pressure to add for them was only to protect against whatever was going to happen with FSU and Clemson, which now I feel has been curtailed strongly. I think those 2 teams are going to wind up staying at least until 2031
until
or 32.
Until we get the 40-team Super League with employed players, yeah,
whatever. They're going to wind up staying because there's not an off ramp for either side that makes any kind of sense. So they added, the West Coast schools and SMU because, they had to, right? There was nothing else for the Virginia Techs and Syracuses of the world to guard against a TV contract collapsing. If that, you don't know what's going to happen in court. But the Big Ten and SEC, and it worked out for the Big Ten because they got 4 teams. But I don't think they really did is this going to be harder? Is this going to be genuinely harder than we expect? And the SEC was the one who was like, well, it doesn't matter because they thought in their own minds that losses within their own conference don't count. So, that's when you hear about Alabama trying to pull this strength of schedule nonsense. Blame the SEC for your conference schedule. You can blame you for your non-conference schedule, but your non-conference schedule wasn't good. So they're like, well, this means that we shouldn't schedule tough out-of-conference games. And you're like, what tough one did you schedule this year?
Well, I would have been like, yeah, don't do it.
Good, fine, don't.
Don't do it then.
Don't do it. Again, you're threatening, 1 game every 3 years that you're not going to schedule, which you're not going to happen. And the TV networks make these things happen anyway because they're like, hey, wouldn't it be great if you guys played
money? But you think about this. Do we remember any of these? Do you remember any early season game this year? Does any non-conference game early in the season stick out to you right now?
Not in a way that made me think different, Yeah. Look, and losses are losses, wins are wins. You have to look at everything. You can't just, look at the, you have to look at the whole painting. You can't be like, look, I don't like this part of it and it's disgusting and bothers me, but the top right corner is genius. No, it's the whole thing. They don't put things in the Louvre because they're partially great, right?
They're part of its average, right.
Yeah, oh, look, he really was going on well here, and then was savagely beaten and hit with rocks and then just kind of half-assed it the
Right.
way. No, like, look, it is Whistler's mother is there because it is, considered the great work of art that it is. It's not just like, oh, well, the rocking chair is great. Like that's not, they can't do that. Greg Sankey, I think, was caught flat-footed a little bit here because he thought like, okay, well, I'm going to get my 4. And the debate is going to be, if the ACC doesn't, well, then Clemson ruined it for him. And then here we are. Right.
Yeah, I think he'll push for something to get more automatic bids because, don't put it in somebody else's hands.
Yeah, but that's going to be stupid. They're just gonna they're not gonna really give them those automatic bids.
No, they shouldn't do that. It's gonna make it worse.
Yeah, they'll just expand it, and then he'll get them anyway. Like if they expand it to 14, he'll get his 4th team. Like that's what will happen. So that he knows that is easier to push because then the Big 12 and ACC go, oh, we could get 3 then. Like one of us is going to get 3. Great, we'll do that because it's not going to be the G5 if you add 2 more teams. It's going to be, the power conferences, the 2 big ones and the 2, stepchildren. We'll split those 2 teams in one regard. Right. Josh, okay, real quick, who is your most intriguing player in the transfer portal? There's too many.
Everybody is in there, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm trying.
Okay, let me ask you this: you're a Mizzou guy.
Yeah.
Okay, which guy, if Drinkwitz calls you tomorrow and says, "Josh, you're the only one who can close this guy. You need to go talk to him, or tell me who's the only guy we need." Who would you go to?
Let's see. I'm looking at the portal right now to figure out where everybody is. Well, the issue is now there's a ton of guys that might be in there that aren't in there right now, right?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of guys because there's
Mateer.
There's 12 teams, right? And we're all waiting for some stuff to go for them. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out. Oh, well, you know what? I actually like a lot if they use them correctly. This might not be the biggest impact guy in the entire world.
No.
Luke Haas from Arkansas, tight end. This Petrino offense this year did not use tight ends the way that they could have. And Luke Haas' player, despite having a back injury, it really just he's not a great blocker, but he is a weapon in the passing game. And if you're a quarterback, Missouri has had the benefit of having quarterbacks that really use the entire field pretty well. And actually Missouri, they do some interesting stuff with their tight ends. I know Norfleet didn't have a great year, but if they get to pair up Haas and Norfleet together, that'd be a pretty dynamic combination. So I would say Luke Haas from Arkansas. I just went local on you. Would be a really interesting player, and I think he's going to make whatever offense he goes to a lot better.
There we go. Josh Neighbors, College Countdown. This is 365 Sports.